I've gone into and worked with a number of Fortune 100 companies. I've been doing Facebook ads literally since they were invented. So I know how to get things done and how to get people sales online and how to structure campaigns because it's what I've been doing for 13 years of my life. In order to be successful, if you want to be successful with direct response, then you have to do.
This is my conversation with Andrew Foxwell. Andrew Foxwell has been running Meta ads since they were invented. He's spent and directed millions of dollars for companies like Kind Snacks, BuzzFeed, Pura Vida Bracelets, and Hilton. He's sold thousands of courses on how to run Meta ads, and he currently runs Foxwell Founders, an elite group of 500 advertisers from across the globe, collectively spending $300 million per month on ads. In this conversation, we've covered everything from current strategies for Facebook ads to basic principles of how to start and run a successful marketing agency. I've learned a lot from this conversation with Andrew, and I'm sure you will too. Here it is. So thank you, Andrew, for taking your time for this podcast. I really appreciate it. There's a lot I want to go over. I think a lot of it will be interesting, both from a media buyer perspective, also from an agency owner perspective. So first thing I wanted to ask you, though, starting with the beginning, you graduated college in political science and management, and I was curious, how does this translate into social media marketing? Because I've had a similar switch that wasn't very conventional. So I was wondering how this happened for you. How did you go from political science and management into social media marketing?
Yeah, it definitely, there are certain overlaps of it. I think in politics, you're always marketing to some degree, and marketing ideas. And
Yeah.
I worked with the press, and with social media, but I was actually in kind of an early social media role in politics. So that's kind of how it translated. But it actually all happened because I was working for a member of Congress, and then I started to do things with Facebook advertising within Congress, within the United States Congress. And then I saw an opening for an agency, and I knew that there was a lot more innovation that was going to be taking place online than there like with in sort of non-governmental entities than there was going to be in government. So I decided to go try to work for an agency, which I did before I started Foxwell Digital with my wife, Gracie, which is now 10 years ago.
How's that? How's the sophistication in like marketing for politicians or Capitol Hill? How sophisticated is it when compared to what we do in DTC? Like building brands. Are they on the same kind of registry? Like, is it similar strategies? Is it on the same level, or is it very different?
Totally different, not at all the same what we do. I would argue that if you are an e-commerce direct response, which is the type of stuff that we do as Facebook marketers, I think we are some of the best marketers in terms of actually getting people to buy things that currently exist. Like, I think there's a reason that if you look at positions on openings that are on Wall Street, or not on Wall Street, but on the Fifth Avenue, with bigger companies, big CPG companies, big legacy companies, they've really been trying to hire people that have the experience we have with indirect response because it's so much more oriented towards results. And there is a place, of course, for brand awareness if you're a massive, in different instances, and especially if you're a massive company. But I think that it also is, we're also kind of salespeople. Like, we have to make a sale, and our jobs don't exist, and we don't keep getting hired unless we actually drive sales. So I do think that it's much more difficult. Government is super slow on implementing tasks in terms of pixel, in terms of creative testing, and even big companies have a challenge with this. So the work that we do, I think we are some of the hardest working digital marketers. And obviously I'm biased, but I've been in the industry a long time, and I've gone into and worked with a number of Fortune 100 companies and done consulting gigs with them. And what I find is that the things I'm talking about, they want to get to, but there's a lot of roadblocks for them. And so it's a less action oriented, get it done attitude. which I love about our industry. I mean, I just think we are on the leading edge because we have to be, because when things don't work, our feet are the ones that are held to the fire.
Yeah. There's no other way, right? If there is no sales, there's no other measure
Right.
of success that can keep you going if there are no sales.
Right.
How would you say that there's anything positive like compared to this? Because obviously I know nothing about political marketing. I've never been in that space. Would you say there's something more like better in that space that you carried over to DTC, or was it like, wow, this is a whole new world and there's so much to learn and nothing that I knew before really applies? Is it?
I mean, the translation between the two, you know, is one thing would be simplistic messaging. Like, in politics, you always say there's some number, it's in the 30s, that customers have to see something 30 times, or is it 13 times? I don't remember the number. I always said 30 before they actually do something. So in that sense, you or a constituent or a voter has to hear something. So, consistency in messaging is something that I learned in politics, where you basically say, you pick 10 things to say, or you pick 3 things to say, and you say them 10 times a day. And you just keep repeating it so that kind of breaks through. I think that's similar and can be translated over to D2C. I think a lot of us, too many times, we try to do too much testing in creative messaging, and we try to do too much, and it's not necessarily an understanding of what are you moving forward. Actually, you just know that you've run tests, and there's not necessarily an outcome that you've attached it to. So I think that's one thing that I thought about, and that could be translated certainly over from the political world. I was on the official side of Congress, and so it was the early days of Facebook, which means we weren't in campaigns. We couldn't say certain things. We couldn't be overly inflammatory in our language, because the things that we did had to go through a bipartisan commission for language approval. So imagine if you had to take your Facebook ad and submit it to every one of your competitors for review before you put it out. That's what we had to do with Facebook ads. So it's obviously a much different environment. But and I think another thing that translated was, you know, the amount of people, the thinking about the amount of people that you can reach, and what that looks like and how powerful that might be. So, taking into serious consideration that you don't want to have and spend time on branded campaigns or language that just doesn't feel like it's true to who you are. Some people get pushed into uncomfortable places, and I think you want to make sure that if that ad was shown and you showed it on the top of the New York Times of you saying something, that you want to be proud of that. And I think there's a lot of people that try to chase certain language, or they try to chase inflammatory thinking, like that would make people upset, right? To get them to respond to an ad. And I'm not saying that's bad, but I also think you have to always be comfortable standing behind what you're saying. And that's something I learned in politics, that integrity runs consistently through everything. It's not just one thing that happens coincidentally, and you're like, oh, I felt really good about this, and then you have all this other bad stuff running down here. Like, you have to make sure that it's something that's constantly top of mind. Make sure that you're confident and clear and kind in your messaging.
It's very interesting. That goes against the popular adagio of I don't care what they say about me as long as they know how to spell my name. So as long as they're talking about me, I don't care what they're saying. And I think too many people go for that and forget about integrity. But yeah. Anyway, what was it that made you want to start Foxwell Digital? So you said you got an agency job after you got out of politics, and then somehow you started Foxwell after that agency job. Is that what happened?
Yeah. So, I had always wanted to run my own agency. It was something, or to run my own business. I wasn't really sure what it was going to do, but I felt like a lot of the digital tools that were coming out, and people always needed help with digital tools. And I actually had started a marketing company in college that was a graphic design and website company. And there was a decent amount of business that came from that. People loved the idea that there was a young person that could come in and say, hey, this is kind of what do you think about it? And I've always liked that idea of a marketing company. So, and I went to work for this agency. They were called PPC Associates at the time, but they're now called 3Q Digital. I went to work for them, and as their original director of paid social, and paid social was brand new at the time. And so, you know, I remember working for them, in a month after starting to work for them, I was on a bus with Wi-Fi launching the first dark post in the newsfeed, which was like brand new. This is 13 years ago or so. And so at that point, I knew that there was a lot of demand, and I knew that I had been working, kind of too much in that sense. I was tied to an office and tied to a location, and even though the company I worked for was very flexible, they were awesome. I just was like, I can do this on my own, and I can have more freedom, and I can choose the clients we want to work with, right? So my wife and I, so Gracie had kind of already started doing some freelance fundraising and grant writing because that was her background. And so we had really started the company under her name, and then we named it Foxwell Digital. And I said, let's just do Facebook ads too. And from there, that's where we started. So we, were able to select who we worked with, what our schedule was, and now it's been 10 years on that journey, which is pretty cool.
Awesome. So which from from where you're saying Facebook has been the main platform from its inception that you've been with, is it
Mm-hmm.
still that way? Have you chosen to specialize on Facebook, or are there other platforms that you enjoy working with? Is it still Facebook or Meta now? Which platform would you say is your strongest point, if any of them?
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely been a meta ads person, in direct response, e-commerce. That's my sweet spot. That's what I know. That's what I know how to do. So, that's really my background and where my expertise lies. Definitely understand Google, definitely understand Google ads and YouTube ads. But I'm not a deep technical expert in that. So, I think really we had the agency, and if we were going to do Google ads, we would outsource them to other people. And then along the lines, we started to do education and do courses, and getting into the community side. And now we also do have actually a Google ads workspace and community called the Foxwell Founders PPC, as along with the Foxwell Founders original ads group, which focuses more on meta advertising, but does talk about Google a little bit. And that's because I really felt like it was a sweet spot in time for people to join communities, because we all had been separated so long by the pandemic, and we needed a place to get best practices from people that we really cared about that wasn't Twitter. So that's where that came from. But we can talk more about that as time goes on. But yeah, our agency's always been a meta ads agency, and and it'll continue to be so. We're not going to expand outside of that, because that's what we know. There's four of us, and we've been doing it forever. I mean, I've been doing Facebook ads literally since they were invented. So I know how to get things done and how to get people sales online and how to structure campaigns, because it's what I've been doing for 10 years of my life, or 13 years of my life.
Yeah. So I know a lot of people that are going to be watching this are going to be like young media buyers starting an agency or getting into the media buying space. So how was it for you during the inception of Foxwell Digital? How were you what was your strategy for client acquisition? How are you getting your first clients? And would that still be valid now? And if not, what would you advise people to do that now? Like if you're a young media buyer, you want to start your own agency, you want to give it a go, what would be your advice to start looking for clients? What would be your strategy?
Yeah, I mean, my strategy is different than others. I think people go about it very differently. Some people, create partnerships with other agencies, which I think is good, and certainly that's part of what we did. We went to agencies that I saw were really busy and needed a place to send leads that
Mhm.
weren't big enough for them. So I set up I followed the biggest and the best that I could, in every platform, basically, and got to know them and said, hey, I would love to pay for your time and I would pay them, $100 sometimes. And sometimes they say, no, you don't have to pay me. I'd love a place to send people. And these would be huge agencies that people you'd hear about. And I would get on the phone with the CEO or this chief operating officer, and say, look, here's who we are. Here's what we do. I've been doing Facebook ads since they were invented. We have a little shop. Our fees are X. I would really love to be a referral partner. I'm happy to kick money back to you. And a lot of times they'd say, sure. Sometimes they'd say no. And that was a big part of it. And another thing was, I kind of looked at who were the tipping points, right? If you've ever read Malcolm Gladwell's book, the tipping point, it's about finding the people that are sort of the nodes of connection within any certain network. So, I reached out to everybody that I thought was a node of connection so that they knew my name. And then I looked at other things, not only within their network, but then like what they were looking at. So, at that time, early on, everybody was reading John Loomer's blog, right? And I think John still, years later, is an industry expert that we turn to. He dissects deep technical things. If you've ever looked, gone on johnloomer.com, I mean, he's the number one Google ranked for every like tons of Facebook search terms. He's probably still gets a 500,000 site visits a month. Like it's probably mental what he gets. But I went on his site and started hitting up the comments, and I just blew up the comments constantly with questions and validation, and would help people in the comments. And then eventually I got to know him, and so he would send clients. And so, there was that kind of thing, right? Of like, where is the information flowing from? And that is still the big, I think a great strategy if you're somebody that's building a business is doing that. I think now it's a matter of, look, if you want to do landing pages, right? It's tagging and saying, there was a guy that went on and did this named Nico, and he went on Twitter and took sort of well-known D2C Twitter personalities and said, hey, I looked at your site. By the way, I redesigned it. And then he recorded the redesign and then put that on Twitter, right? Like, what a way to capture attention. That's obviously going to get them on the phone with you. And those people know a lot of people that need that service. So I think some of it's a matter of reaching out to the tipping points. I think some of it's a matter of understanding and knowing a landscape enough to know what's currently in demand. If you launch an agency now and said, I'm going to do Facebook ad buying, well, there's a million of these. I mean, a billion people do this now, right? So like, that's not as special. I think if you're looking to get into digital marketing, the things that you could do are like, creative services, sort of UGC facilitation for creators, landing page services and landing page iteration. And so some of it is understanding as a marketing person and understanding as a business person, the landscape, what's out there, what are the current needs, and what are the things that people are really asking for, that you could potentially be a different entrant into the market. So another thing that we did was, I looked at the market and everybody was charging $3,000 a month. That was a common thing. They were charging $3,000 a month to manage ads. And we came out with a pricing package that was a 10-hour package of our time, and it was $2,500. And we would sell it to companies that some of them would just be testing Facebook ads. And this is years ago, but they would be testing Facebook ads. They would be getting them going. And we would say, look, if it takes me 45 minutes to launch this and look at it for another 15 minutes all week and it's doing okay, then you only used an hour, And so it was trying to kind of like get them into it. And then a lot of those people turned into retainers. So it's a combination of, looking at the landscape, looking at who those connection points are, what news people are reading, and how you can kind of be in multiple places at once so that they start to see your name. And then also having, a product market fit that makes sense and is going to actually allow people to be like, yes. I was asked people in what they're selling, product, service. It's like, what's the thing that's going to make the customer say yes right away? Is it price? Is it the package? What are the things that they want to hear? And then how can you build services to present to those and sell? Because I think of those 10-hour packages, we never had somebody say no. And I probably sold 40 of those, like in like 8 years of business or whatever, and eventually we took the price up and we don't sell those anymore. But that was a great package because nobody said no, because it fit people where they were and allowed them to try it without a commitment and give it a shot. But it also gave us realized revenue on the front end, et cetera.
Awesome. Did you ever run paid ads to get clients or no? No? Okay. Because a lot of people are preaching this now. That's why I wanted to ask you this, because a lot of people are preaching like click funnels kind of thing with paid ads and get people to book a call through there. But I was wondering if this is something that you do, because I think this is a lot less efficient.
I mean, my whole opinion on the like booking call or click to book a call type thing, right? So I understand that there's people that are going to want to do that, and that I get it. But the point is that when there's a billion people that are doing it, what sets you apart? Like,
Yeah.
you know, it's a templated format, and you sign up to say, oh, well, this guy's going to teach me how to get leads. I'm not saying that's bad, but it also fundamentally skips over the part, which is asking the question of like, what do you actually do that's different, and what's going to keep you in business for 5 to 10 years? And that's not, like, how are you setting yourself apart? What are the ways you're pricing your services? How are you offering it? And the book a call thing, yes, I think that there's options there, but it's you have to design it in a way that's true and genuine and doesn't feel like totally over salesy. Because think about it. If you go through as a consumer and you were in charge of marketing dollars, let's say you ran a plumbing company, would you click to go through and like submit, like, and you get on a call with a person and the calendar invite sent to you and all that? Like, does that feel like an experience that you would be excited to hire that person for? It just feels disingenuous already. It doesn't feel like you're working with a person. You know what I'm saying? And I don't know, there's something about it that's off from the outset. So, I'm not saying it can't be done, but if you're going to do that, you have to also approach it from like a way of what's going to help them feel the genuine human connection to you immediately. And maybe that's a way that you're redoing the sales page or the sales letter, or, you know, you're the way that the ads are structured. Maybe they have a video of you, I don't know. And it's not just like, I'm going to make you $10,000 right now. If I
Yeah.
don't, you can fire me. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I think there's ways to do it, but you also have to be conscious that like, we're all human beings.
Yeah, that's what I think's going on mostly is overselling by a lot, and it just comes off weird. Like if I don't make you $1 million in a month, I'll give you your money back, and then it's overselling for a bit. But anyway, moving on to Facebook ads and the current landscape of things. Um, I wanted to ask you, like, is there, because a lot of people preach every account is an account, every account is different, every account has to be handled differently. Do you have like a standard operating procedure for a new client that comes in and you input a certain account structure into that account before you know what works, before you've tested anything? Is there like a go-to account structure that you go for initially, or do you just start by testing a lot of things and you find out and you go completely for the approach where every single account is different?
I think that there's a couple different things. One is historical context in reference to what the person has already tested is important. So I think that you have to take into consideration, what have they done? Okay. And how have they gone about buying, and what has been successful for them. So that's baseline. You got to go through and like understand what they've already done and when you're coming in. I think that there's a number of people that they'll come in and they'll completely blow up an account and do something completely different. And there are cases for that, but I don't think there's every case for that. I'm a real believer in, don't rock the boat too much. And if you're gonna build new things, make sure that there's a plan and a reasoning for that. I think another thing, if you look across campaigns and the way that we come into an account, you're looking at this point, media buying used to be a lot more complex in reference to account structure. It used to be a lot of different audiences and ad sets, and it was complicated, right? And now it's not as much. It's much simpler. So the question right away is, where can we simplify things? What can we do in reference to consolidation? And what can we do in reference to the ad creative and the landing pages that we are sending people in reference to customer journey, alongside making some of the ad buying technicalities more stable? So those are like the questions that we ask from the beginning. It depends on the spend amount. And it depends on how we're like, what kind of availability we have to do testing. But typically, we'll launch a testing campaign if there isn't one, right? That's usually like 10% of budget. Typically, we're going to try to spool up Advantage Plus if that person hasn't tried Advantage Plus. Typically, we're going to be trying to consolidate remarketing efforts if they haven't done that, right? And we're going to try to be spooling up different types of customization within the catalog. That's another thing that's been big for us. But you know, outside of that, I mean, still a believer in interest stacks. I love them. I still think that there's room
Yeah.
for them in a lot of cases. So that's something as well that we will try to combine. And then, you know, really it's a matter of creative moonshots that are like totally off the wall that we want to try in our creative testing campaign to try to bring into other places. So those are kind of the frameworks, but it depends on spend. It depends on, um, where people are in reference to the spend, what they've tested, and how many. They may have said, look, I tried this, it didn't work. And that was 6 months ago. Well, 6 months ago is an eon. It's like forever ago in Facebook ads.
Yeah.
So if it's been 30 days ago, okay, then we don't need to test that right away. We'll put that in the roadmap for later. So no, there's not a broad brush with which each account is painted.
Okay. How do you deal with the on-brand issue? Because I'm sure everyone's faced that. Like you're looking at an account, your client has on-brand creative, on-brand ads, and you know for a
Mm-hmm.
fact that doing it a bit differently would bring in better results, but the client wants to stay on-brand, or maybe you think switching up the offer would be the better choice. So, how do you approach clients and how successfully do you approach clients when you believe that a change needs to be made, but they're very reluctant to it because they want to keep everything on brand? They don't want to make changes to the offer. How do you overcome this kind of situation?
Yeah. So, you know, my discussion with people that have that feeling, and we've worked with Fortune, like I said, Fortune 100 companies, that this is a big thing for them. So, my thing is, look, okay, we want to test different ideas. We want to test things that look different. And here's examples of what those might look like. Okay. And we'll give them examples, and then we'll say, is there an opportunity for us to sit down with your creative team to talk about how we might do some on brand versions of this? And if the answer is no, we won't do anything like that, we'll never do anything like that, then we will end the professional relationship at that point. There's nothing that we can do. You know, or I will say, look, outside of this type of creative, if you feel that there's this on brand argument that you want to continue to have, and you're willing to do some experimentation, then let's talk about what that might look like and testing over time. And we had that with a particular advertiser a couple of years ago that was a client of ours, and they were very adamant about their brand and their look, and we were sort of stuck in the middle. And we ran the things that were with their look, and they didn't perform as well. And ultimately, we decided to go separate ways. But we gave them a chance. I gave them a chance to prove my point. So, you know, I think that's one thing, but it's not like a my way or the highway. It's you have to, in order to be successful, if you want to be successful, with direct response, then you have to be testing and leading forward into creative testing. If you are okay with getting traffic or brand awareness, then we can do that. And it's not going to be as DR focused. It's not going to be as results focused, and it's not a big deal. Then we'll run whatever you want, and it'll be on brand, and it'll be targeted to the right people in the right locations. And that's what we'll do. Right. So as long as you're transparent about it and honest about it, I think that it's okay. But if people are reluctant and they're never going to do it, then you're not going to be the one that changes their mind. And they have to have someone that's kind of an internal champion. Um, and I've been brought in by other agencies, for what it's worth, actually, to like be the person that's a validator, saying you need to think about this, and if you're not, like, you're behind. And that's moved the needle in some cases for people, and in other cases the company still says, whatever, who cares, we're not going to do that. And okay, you know, I mean, you can only be in charge of yourself and the way that you've presented it. So it's definitely a challenging thing. And you know, I think where we run into the issue as Facebook marketers, honestly, is we are too reactionary, saying we've got to try this right now. And I think it's more about having a long-term strategy of saying, how do we think about doing this properly over time in terms of the overall strategy? So we don't have to do this style all right now, but how do we start to tiptoe into this strategy? And how do we start to get there so that over time we are doing more creative testing that's really different, that's going to potentially, lend us to have better results.
Right. Nice. And yeah, one thing they've already touched on that I wanted to just ask you one quick question about was the fact that media buying is not what it used to be, and it's not as complicated. There's no ad set campaign complicated structures. Some people still swear by it, but I mean, I agree that broad and account simplification has been something that Meta has been pushing for a long time now, and every time they push it harder and harder with each new advertising product that they release. Um, so the way I'm looking at it, and you'll tell me if you agree, but is the the complexification or the complex layer of running ads on Meta now has gone one level lower. It used to be on the ad set level. A lot of it used to be on the ad set level, on the targeting, on the all the complicated gimmicks that you had to utilize. Now it's gone one level lower to the ad level, and that's where it's at now. It's all on the creative level, and a lot of people kind of got left behind because they're still at this ad set level kind of mindset, but now it's all happening at the creative level. So, and here's my question: how have you adapted your process within Foxwell Digital to make this or to reflect this change in how you approach your clients' accounts? Like, because you're not spending time anymore with interests and all of this stuff that you used to spend time on. So you're spending time on the creative level, right? What have you changed internally to make this happen? And how are you reinvesting this time that has been freed up by the account management stuff that you don't have to do as much anymore?
Yeah, I mean, I think big changes that have been made are like one big one has been, I think that you can't talk about that shift and not talk about becoming better marketers, which I think we've been all
Exactly.
forced to do.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We've all
Absolutely.
been forced to be. I think I know, and I can say this because it's true for me. I got really spoiled. Right? I've been doing this a long time. We used to launch ads to a product landing page, and it would get a 10x, and you'd be like, peace, and then you were good. Right? I mean, not
Yeah.
all the time, but like it was pretty cool, and it worked
Yeah.
really well, and it spoiled us to some degree. And now, because of where we are at in the competitive landscape, et cetera, and face in competition within Meta, and in how hard it is to get people to buy stuff, we've had to be in the last 3 years really better at being real marketers. So where we spend a lot of time now that we didn't used to is in client financials. We used to spend, what does it actually mean in terms of what you need for a new customer CPA? What does it mean for your contribution margin? What does it mean for your cost of goods sold, et cetera? Having those conversations and putting them into financial worksheets that help us understand the financial picture is big. And then it gets more complex too, with multiple product lines and things like that. Like, if how can we spend on this product line versus spending on this product line? So those nuances we didn't used to have to do. So that's where a lot of free time goes. But that's also from the outset where we're spending a lot of time. In terms of the lever pulling and ad buying itself and shifting to creative, where we're spending time now is on creative testing. I mean, that is all just shifted over to what are the customer segments, and shifting over to asking regularly, what are the customer segments that we are not currently reaching that we could, and how do we speak to them? What are the ways that we've never pitched this, and what are the product needs we're unaware of? And usually that circles back to some kind of customer surveying, deep customer research. And then what are the ways that we are utilizing matching language between the landing page and the creative itself? So how are we building listicles, 5 reasons why, publisher landing pages, that are different than just sending people directly to the product page? What are the ways that we can talk about our product, that we're showing how we're solving problems, that we are, giving people we're making it problem aware, et cetera. Like, looking at the stages of consumer psychology in reference to what we're doing, right? It's like problem unaware, problem aware, solution aware, company aware, right? It's just like there's a lot to that. And we used to just say, Andrew Foxwell's gel makes your hair feel better. 5 stars. Buy it today. And okay, well, that's like the lowest end. So
Yeah.
what are the ways that you can think about hooks? And that's where we're spending that time. And it's it makes it much more challenging. So how have we shifted is, you know, we've shifted into our process into, let's say that we're having on a monthly basis with a client, we're talking about the numbers. That's a big part of it. We used to talk about the Facebook numbers. Now we're talking about the Facebook numbers and the meta numbers in reference to the overall numbers. So that's one thing that we're discussing.
Mhm.
So that's shifted. We also then will go to talking about what are the creative tests that we have running and what are the things that we believe that we can unlock. And then we go through and discuss in our process really what I call destinations. Where are we sending people, and how successful have those destinations been? And what are the ways we're bringing people in and through the funnel properly? And then we're also, looking at the more holistic picture, like what's happening on email, and what's happening on SMS, and what's happening on Google Ads, to make sure that we understand and all of those things are speaking together. So the process is much more, we're deeper in businesses. It's much more operations based, and it's much more holistic. And so those have been the biggest shifts that we've made.
Yeah. You know what? I was thinking about these shifts because obviously we had to do them as well in our agency. And I was thinking, you know what? Maybe this is actually a good thing because before we were allowed to be bad marketers somehow because you would get results with stuff that was so simplistic that you kind of forgot the principles, and now you're forced to bring back all of those marketing principles that you were kind of allowed to set aside a bit because just the platforms worked so well and they did all the heavy lifting for you. And now you have to go back and actually be a good marketer again, which is good. I think it's a good thing. It's gonna get rid of all of um, people that were selling gimmicky stuff and really just only got results because the platforms allowed them to get. So another thing I wanted to talk to you about was founders. So when did you start founders? When did you start Foxwell Founders? How did this idea come along? Yeah, basically, let's start with that. How did the idea come first, and how long ago was it?
Yeah, so in June, 2 years ago in June, this was in 2021. We'd come through. We were in, obviously we're still in the pandemic today, but we were coming through the being vaccinated, and we'd all been disconnected for a long time. Our daughter was born in February of 2020, so went into lockdown 3 weeks after she was born, and we'd really felt it was really challenging time for everyone in our family. It was incredibly challenging for all of us, and so we really felt alone. We really felt by ourselves, and professionally, I felt like we were all much more disconnected because we had been so insular. And so there was a group that a couple of buddies joined on Slack, and I thought, this is great. I mean, Twitter to me was just so much posturing, and I'm not saying it's terrible. There definitely are some bright spots to X, not Twitter, now, but it was too much, and it wasn't providing guidance. It was making you feel like you were constantly underperforming and constantly not doing enough, etc. So I knew that we had the best, we had people that had purchased courses from us. So we looked at the list of people that had purchased more than 2 courses, and I think it was 30 people or something. I memean, we're not like a big multi-million dollar course seller or anything. People might think we are, but we're not. So we had we had that. And I thought, well, Gracie and I talked about it. And I thought, well, let's try to launch a community. I think there's a need for this. I think people are missing it. And I think it could be really productive and helpful. And so we did launch the community, and almost everybody joined right away. Almost everybody on that 30-person list joined. And I thought, whoa, we have something here. And then it became really my duty of, how do I take care of these people? How do I make sure that they, are taken care of, that they are resourced properly, that they are given the best information that I currently know, that they have a diverse set of things to go to ask questions, that they have, wherever they are, if that's about running their business, if that's about running meta ads, if that's about CRO, if that's about Google ads or whatever, right? And how do we make this clear and easy to find? So that's really what it's been. And my mentality with the membership, we've never run one paid ad for the membership. We've run sponsored posts in people's newsletters, so I guess that is an ad. But I meant like social ads or something to grow the membership. But we've sponsored newsletters and things here and there to help members mostly get to help them build their followings. But that aside, it's been a brick by brick mentality for me, which is keep helping people the most genuine way that I can and let them know that I'm there for them. And hopefully you felt that being a member too. That's how it all got going. So it was really a sense of trying to have a safe place almost for media buyers to be, that we could ask questions, that we could be vulnerable, that we could say, I have this staffing issue in my agency, or I'm having this pixel problem. Honestly, I'm embarrassed to ask this, but I don't know. And not being embarrassed. It's okay, right? We're all in this together. And it's been evidenced by the growth of the group. I think that there was a space really needed for that.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. It's one thing that really stands out with founders is that one, how much you care about the group and how much you go out of your way to make sure that everyone gets what they're looking for from the group. That is really amazing. So congratulations on that work. And another one is how it's not about people bragging about what they've achieved or look the results that we're getting for this client or whatever. It's actually people genuinely asking for help for stuff that, as you said, could be a bit embarrassing, like, hey, I don't know how to do this, can anyone help? But everyone is very supportive, and it is really an amazing environment that you've built for media buyers and agency owners to sort out these issues and I feel like everyone's up to date with each other, so everyone helps each other stay up to date with what's going on. So that really is amazing. I'm gonna leave a link in the description if anyone wants to check out Foxwell Founders. Another thing I wanted to ask you, what's your ultimate vision for founders? Like, do you have a number in mind? I want to get to this amount of people and then we close because I can't manage more people than this. Or is there anything you'd like to make out of the membership that is still not in place yet? What's your vision?
My vision is what's currently happening with the group, which is a place that people, we just did a monthly survey, and we put that out, and we had so it's, how happy are you with this group? Do you feel it's helpful, and would you recommend it to a friend? And we only had, so there's been we have 500 members. 100 of the members have filled it out thus far, so we're going to keep trying to push that up, but it's not too bad on a response rate. And out of those 100, there's only been 2 that were anything less than an 8, 9, or 10. So on any of those, and they were, one of them guys, he said, would you tell your friends? And he put a 5, and I said, why'd you put a 5? And he said, well, I don't want to tell anybody else because it's my secret weapon. So it's like some of them aren't real, but that's my vision. My vision is that it's helpful to any digital marketer that uses meta ads in a more serious way at any level. So that they could be spending $1 million a day or $1 a day, and there are people in that spread in the group. So that's something that's important to me. The vision is connecting in person with people. We've had 6 in-person events now. I've personally met over 300 members. And, we had a meetup in London this summer, and there was, almost 70 people at this thing that flew in from all over Europe to be together. So that's the vision in and of itself. I don't have any vision that it will grow more. If it does, okay, I think we can support that for now. I'm going to continue to use, price as the guide. We just raised the price again because, we don't need more members, really. I mean, if we get some more, great, but it'll keep most people out because it's $500 a month now. I mean, that's incredibly expensive for something people aren't sure of. But I think for the right person, it'll pay for itself in spades. So, that's the vision really, is to continue to support people, continue to give people answers, continue to help so that we continue to get 8s, 9s, and 10s on the survey and that people are happy. And, my the only thing we haven't achieved that I would like to is I would like to do some big like tropical island event where we all get together and go to the beach and hang out and bring families and stuff. That would be a dream for me. We might have to do like a US version and a European version, but that kind of thing of bringing together people and their families and being human beings together, right? Like that's the beautiful thing in all of it. Like, because I met people's kids at different, I've met their kids at different events, and I know them. I know what's going on in their lives. And like, ultimately we're all in business together, but we also are all trying to make a life. And so that's a really beautiful thing to me to know those sides. So
Yeah, it's an amazing idea. Like, I'm down for that beach meetup. If you
I
need
know
any help,
everybody says that, man. I know. I'm like, we got to do this.
if you need any help organizing it, I'm down, man. That sounds amazing. Um, yeah, let me ask you this, because you mentioned the course offers for Foxwell
Mhm.
Digital, and
Mhm.
one thing that I think is very negative for people nowadays on X or YouTube is the amount of low quality silver bullet kind of information that's flying around. Like, if you do this, you're gonna get these crazy results. Click below to book a call with me if you want me to run your ads. This kind of stuff. And so I wanted to ask you, from your point of view, other than Foxwell Digital, for people who are trying to actually get good quality information, what would you recommend for people to learn from, like as resources to cut
that
through
are
the
begin
noise, is what I
that are
mean.
beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's that are beginning. There's different options. If you've never done ads and you want to get into it and learn, you know, there's there's a great course out by one of our members named Rebecca Jones, and she has like a Facebook ads course that's good. I think your content on your YouTube channel is like insane for free.
Thank,
Like,
thank
so
you.
how I think that's a great place to start if you've never done it. I think you can go to places on YouTube like Watch Fire Teams, creative meetings. You can go and look at Dara Denny's videos are incredibly rich with information. So those are kind of some of the places that I think you can go. Our courses are really for people if you're looking at 0 to 10 on Facebook ads. 0, nothing. 10, you're an expert. You know, our courses are aimed at people that are 3, 4, 5, and then most of our stuff's at the 8, 9s, and 10s. So we have a course called Assessment, Action, Ascension, and that course is really for the 3, 4, 5s because it's a fundamental course of like, here's all the things you need to know. It's 7 hours. It's just crazy. I mean, that you need to know to get going, to really get going in terms of all of these pieces. It's kind of a soup to nuts type of comprehensive course. So yeah, I think, it's what's the saying that like the bees attract the right honey or something like that, right? Like, I would say ask around and look for real people that have done these real courses, because the people that are going to buy my course, it's learn how I made 10 grand overnight or whatever. Like, those people are always going to live kind of in a parallel universe to us. Those of us that are really doing this for the long term, and that's okay. We don't need to serve them. And they're going to keep doing their own thing, and they're going to keep launching 900 ad sets to do some. You know what I mean? Like, they're going to keep trying to hack the system. Well, we're going to keep trying to do what we're doing, and that's okay. We don't have to serve those people and don't have to be that to everybody.
Yeah, absolutely agree. So, last chapter of things that I wanted to discuss regarding meta ads. What is first regarding the aspect of dynamic creatives, because now with the new broad account structures and more consolidated structures, it's become more of a thing. I think it's become more discussed. It's being brought out, more dynamic creatives. So I wanted to ask you, are you using dynamic creatives? And if yes, are you using this? I think the more common structure there's being mentioned is one CBO campaign per market or country, and then having multiple dynamic creatives inside of it with broad targeting, or maybe just a broad interest stack as guardrails, but very broad audience with multiple dynamic creatives. Is this something that you're using, or are you going for A plus, or do you not use dynamic creatives at
Yeah,
all?
I mean, dynamic creatives are, I think they're great if you have a lot of assets and you have a lot of things to test. So, it can be kind of a pre-step if you've not done it. So, you have a lot of stuff, you're not really sure what language resonates. It, we'll put things in a dynamic creative test. And yeah, it can be in a CBO by market, or it could be just in a general CBO. It depends. Most of our clients are just US, so we don't do a ton of international. So in
Mhm.
that case, it's a different thing. But a DCT can be great. You put them in, you let it see what you just let it show you which one works or which couple combinations work, and then you take those combinations and launch them as statics. So to me, it's not something you do long term, unless you, for direct response. I don't think it's productive for direct response long term. Personally, I would rather have statics in a testing campaign. But if you have a ton of creative and you're getting overwhelmed with the amount of stuff and you feel like you want to give things want to give everything a shot, then DCT can be helpful. I don't think it gives. I think it chooses too quickly. Personally, a lot of times how something
Yeah.
works. So I'm. It depends on the instance. Like if things are different enough, if they're very different from one another, then we'll try it. But a lot of times we are doing iterative concepts, that we're going to launch them as statics. We're not going to do it as a DCT. So that's kind of how we use it. But I think there's reasons for doing it if you have a lot of input, and you need places to put it to get a quick read.
What's your go-to testing setup? Like ABO, single ad, and then
Yeah,
scale?
ABO. Yeah, basically our it depends on the client, but honestly, it's 10% of the budget usually just an ABO, 2 to 3 ads a week in there. Sometimes we'll scale in place if it's doing well. We'll just keep it up broad. We don't do, sometimes it'll be an interest stack, but most of the time it's just broad, and go from there. And then if it's doing well, we'll graduate them sometimes into an ASC,
Mhm.
or, you know, it's not super complicated, honestly. I've done testing so many different ways that to me, having it in an ABO is a simpler way to do it and go about it. And then just kind of, if it's doing well, scale it from there and start a new testing campaign.
And so you said you use three ads, so you don't do single ad ABO. You still give it some variables to play with. Inside of one ABO, you use more than one ad.
Yeah, use more than one ad. Yeah, and sometimes we'll have, if it's a big enough budget, sometimes we'll have, 5 ads in there, but it's not going to be more than that usually.
All right. So for new agency owners starting now, what offer would you recommend? And what niche would you recommend people to specialize in? Would you still go for e-com, Facebook ads? Because you've mentioned that it's quite saturated now. So what are your thoughts on this? What would you recommend someone new to go for?
Yeah, I mean, I think ecom is a great market, and I think if you can do it, I would absolutely continue to recommend going working in ecom. But I would really work on, if you can, things within the creator space, things within brokering influencers and creators. That kind of thing is a really hot space right now. People don't know how to do very well. Getting into video editing with quick turnarounds is another really good one. And any sort of landing page optimization and landing page building, you can is big. You can do a lot of amazing things on like Replo, and you can get them going and launch a Replo agency that I think would do really well right now, because a lot of the people that are out there will do 2 landing pages for 5K. And so if you're a low cost person into the market, or entrant into the market, I think you have an opportunity. So those would probably be my recommendations. And if you know how to run ads generally, I think it can be lucrative and productive for you. Absolutely. To continue to kind of have that baseline of knowledge. But if you push into testing out some of those other things for your agency, I think those are probably the most productive and lucrative that I could think of right now.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for taking time today to speak to us. It was a very nice, a very valuable conversation. I really enjoyed it. Thank you for your time today.
Yeah,
And yeah, we hope we get to do this again soon. Thank you.
sounds good. Thank you.